Weeks passed, and Brenda began to feel strange. She was often tired and exhausted. The truth hit her like a storm. She was pregnant. She tried to hide it, but the nuns noticed her growing fatigue and changes in her body. "You must leave immediately," the Mother Superior declared. "There is no place for you here." Brenda begged for mercy, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. She packed her few belongings, tears streaming down her face as she walked out of the convent gates. She felt a mix of shame and fear. Brenda grew up in the quiet walls of a convent. Her parents, devoutly religious, believed that dedicating their only child was the greatest honor. Brenda didn't have the freedom to play outside or make friends. Instead, her days were filled with prayers, Bible studies, and strict discipline. At first, Brenda didn't question her life. The nuns were kind and she felt safe in the convent. But as she grew older, she began to wonder about the world beyond the high stone walls. She would often sit by the window, watching the birds flying freely in the sky, wishing she could experience life outside. One day, during evening prayers, she whispered a question to herself: "Is this really my purpose?" At the age of 12, Brenda officially became a novice, preparing to take her vows as a nun. She wore a simple habit and followed the routines of the older nuns. Her life was predictable, waking up at dawn, praying, working in the garden, and studying scriptures. Despite her growing doubts, Brenda worked hard to please everyone. The Mother Superior often praised her dedication, calling her a child of grace. But deep inside, Brenda felt like something was missing. One evening, as she lit candles in the chapel, she prayed silently, "God, if there is more to life, show me." Brenda's prayer seemed to be answered in an unexpected way. One afternoon, while attending the convent vegetable garden near the gate, she noticed a man standing outside. He was tall, with a warm smile and curious eyes. "Excuse me," he said politely. "I'm looking for St. Mary's Church. Am I close?" Brenda hesitated. She was not supposed to talk to strangers, but something about him felt safe. "Yes, it's just down the road," she replied, her voice soft. "Thank you," the man said. "My name is James, by the way. And you are?" "I'm Brenda," she said, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. As James walked away, Brenda couldn't stop thinking about him. James started appearing more often near the convent. He claimed to be visiting the nearby church, but he always found a reason to greet Brenda. Over time, their conversations grew longer. Brenda learned that James was a carpenter who traveled from town to town, fixing furniture and selling handmade items. He had a kind heart and a way of making her laugh, something she hadn't done in years. "You must have so many stories about life outside," Brenda said one day. I do," James replied. "Maybe one day you'll see it for yourself." Brenda's heart raced. For the first time, she began to dream of a life beyond the convent walls. Brenda knew it was against the rules to meet James, but she couldn't resist. Every evening, she sneaked out of the garden where James could be writing. They talked for hours about everything: faith, dreams, and the world outside. One night, James brought her a small wooden bird he had carved. "For you," he said, "to remind you that you can fly." Brenda clutched the gift tightly, tears filling her eyes. "I'm not sure I can," she whispered. "You can," James said firmly. "You just need to believe in yourself." Brenda and James grew closer with each meeting. What started as friendship blossomed into love. James confessed his feelings one evening under the stars. I know this might sound crazy, he said, but I think God brought me here to meet you. Brenda's heart pounded. She felt the same way, but she was terrified of what it meant. Could she abandon everything she had known for love? As they held hands, Brenda realized she couldn't deny her feelings any longer. Oh wow. Brenda and James met as usual in the garden under the cover of darkness. That night, the air felt different, heavier, filled with unspoken words. James held her hand, her eyes searching hers. Brenda, I know your life here is scattered, but my heart tells me you're meant for more, James said softly. Brenda's breath hissed. She wanted to tell him she felt the same way, but her words couldn't come out. Instead, she leaned closer, her heart pounding her chest. Before she could stop herself, James gently pulled her into a kiss. It was brief but filled with emotion. And when it ended, Brenda's eyes filled with tears. "What have we done?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "We fought our hearts," James replied. "I'll stand by you no matter what." Weeks passed, and Brenda began to feel strange. She often felt tired and exhausted. The truth hit her like a stone. She was pregnant. She tried to hide it, but the nuns noticed her growing fatigue and changes in her body. One day, while cleaning the chapel, Sister Agnes confronted her. "Brenda, are you hiding something?" she asked gently. Brenda froze. "No, sister," she lied, but her voice wavered. The Mother Superior was informed, and Brenda was summoned. Under the weight of their questions, Brenda broke down and confessed. "I've sinned," she said. "I'm carrying a child." The Mother Superior's face turned pale with a shock and anger. "You've betrayed your vows and disgraced the holy place," she said coldly. News of Brenda's pregnancy spread throughout the convent. The nuns whispered about her in disapproval, and even those who once cared for her turned away. "You must leave immediately," the superior mother declared. "There is no place for you here." Brenda begged for mercy, but her place fell off deaf ears. She packed her few belongings, tears streaming down her face as she walked out of the convent gates. She felt a mix of shame and fear. James was waiting for her, as if he had known this day would come. Without a word, he took her hand and led her away. Brenda's next stop was her parents' home. She hoped they would offer her shelter, but when they saw her condition, their faces darkened. "You've brought shame to our family," her father shouted. "How could you throw away everything we've worked for?" Her mother, usually gentle, was equally unforgiving. "We raised you to serve God, not to disgrace us like this," she said, turning away. Brenda fell on her knees, begging, "Please, I have nowhere to go," she begged. Her father shook his head. "You've made your choice. Now live with it." With nowhere to turn, Brenda left, feeling outwardly abandoned. James took Brenda to his small home on the outskirts of the village. It was a modest place with a single room and a link roof. It was warm and welcoming. "This is all I have," James said, holding her hand, "but it is yours now." Brenda looked around, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. James worked tirelessly to make her comfortable, cooking meals and ensuring she rested. Despite their hardship, Brenda felt a sense of peace for the first time in weeks. Life outside the convent was challenging for Brenda. She struggled with the simple tasks like cooking and cleaning, skills she had never learned. One evening, as she burned a pot of straw, she broke down. I don't know how to live like this, she cried. James put her into a hug. We'll figure this out together, he said. You're not alone. Slowly, Brenda began to adapt. She learned to cook and care for their small home. James was patient and supportive, and their love grew stronger with each passing day. As Brenda's pregnancy processed, James became more attentive. He carved a wooden bed for their baby and painted it with bright colors. This is for our little one, he said proudly. Brenda smiled, her heart swelling with love. I don't deserve you, she said softly. Yes, you do, James replied. You brought light into my life. Despite the challenges they faced, Brenda began to feel hope. She realized that love, not the covenant, was her true calling. The final day finally came when Brenda went in labor. James rushed her to a village midwife, his face pale with worry. Brenda gripped his hand tightly, crying out in pain. It's going to be okay, James whispered, though his voice trembled. Hours later, the cries of the new baby filled the room. The midwife smiled as she placed the baby, a healthy boy, into Brenda's arms. Tears streamed down her face as she held her son for the first time. He's perfect, Brenda whispered, her heart overflowing with love. James kissed her forehead. You are amazing, he said. Both of you are my everything. They named the baby Emmanuel, meaning God with us. A reminder that even in their struggles, they were not alone. News of Brenda's baby spread quickly throughout the village. Some people pitied her, while others gossiped and judged. She's the girl who was thrown out of the convent, one woman said. And her parents disowned her too, another added. Brenda felt the weight of their words every time she walked through the market or attended church. But James stood by her side, holding her hand and reassuring her that they were stronger together. Let them talk, he said one evening as they sat by fire. We know the truth of our love. One day, as Brenda was washing clothes outside, a familiar figure approached. It was Sister Agnes from the convent. Brenda's heart raced with a mix of fear and hope. I've come to check on you, Sister Agnes said gently. Brenda wiped her hands on her apron, unsure of what to say. I'm doing okay, she replied. Sister Agnes smiled sadly. It was Mother Superior who was harsh, but some of us still care about you. You're always in our prayers. Tears welled in Brenda's eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Before leaving, Sister Agnes handed her a small Bible. Remember, God's love is unconditional, she said. Times were tough for Brenda and James. James worked long hours as a carpenter, but money was scarce. One evening, he returned home with a worried look. I got an offer to work in another village for a few months, he said. The pay is good, but it means I have to leave you and Emmanuel for a while. Brenda's heart sank. She didn't want him to go, but she knew they needed the money. I'll manage, she said, forcing a smile. Do what you need to do. James hugged her tightly. I'll come back soon as I can, he promised. With James gone, Brenda had to take care of Emmanuel on her own. It was exhausting, but she found strength she didn't know she had. One night, as she rocked Emmanuel to sleep, she whispered, I'll do everything to protect you, my little one. The villagers began to notice Brenda's resilience. Some even started to admire her for her courage. Slowly, the gossip turned into a quiet respect. One afternoon, there was a knock at Brenda's door. When she opened it, she was shocked to see her mother standing there. Mother, Brenda gasped. Her mother's face was filled with regret. I've come to see my grandson, she said softly. Brenda hesitated but stepped aside to let her in. Her mother's eyes filled with tears as she saw Emmanuel sleeping. "He's handsome," she whispered. "I'm sorry for abandoning you, Brenda. I let my pride get in the way." Brenda's heart ached with conflicting emotions. "You hurt me deeply," she said. "I know," her mother replied, "but I want to make things right." Brenda's father came a few days later, also seeking forgiveness. At first, Brenda was hesitant, but James's words echoed in her mind. Forgiveness heals the heart. Slowly, Brenda allowed her parents back into her life. They helped her with Emmanuel and even supported James's work. One evening, as they sat together as family, Brenda realized how far she'd come. "I never thought I would have this again," she said, holding Emmanuel close. James smiled. "Love always finds a way," she said. After months of hard work in another village, James finally returned home. Brenda's heart leaped with joy when she saw him walking towards the house. His bag slung over his shoulder. "James," she cried, running to meet him. He dropped his bag and hugged her tightly. "I missed you so much," he whispered. Emmanuel, now crying, giggling as James picked him up and kissed his tiny cheeks. "Look how much he has grown," James said, his voice filled with pride. The little family spent the evening together, sharing stories and laughter. For the first time in a long time, Brenda felt whole. With the money James earned, they were able to fix the leak roof and buy a few more accessories for the house. Brenda even started learning to make and sell craft at the market, earning a small income for her own. "You are amazing, Brenda," James said one evening as they worked together on a wooden table he was building. "You've turned this house into a home." Brenda smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. Despite the hardships, they were building a future together, one step at a time. One day, a group of villagers approached James with a proposal. They wanted him to join a construction project in the city, promising high pay and better opportunities. "It's a great chance," one of them said. But Brenda felt unease. "The city is far, and we've just started to settle down," she said. James was torn. The offer could change their lives, but it meant being away from his family again. "I need time to think," he told the villagers. That night, Brenda and James talked for hours. "Whatever decision you make, we'll face it together," Brenda said, holding his hand. After much thought, James decided to take a job, but on one condition. Brenda and Emmanuel would come with him. "It's time we start fresh somewhere new," he said. Brenda was nervous but agreed. They packed their belongings and said goodbye to the village. The move was bittersweet, but they were excited for what lay ahead. The city was overwhelmingly at first. The noise, the crowds, and the fast pace were unlike anything Brenda had ever experienced. But James helped her adjust, and she quickly found a rhythm. She started a small stall food near their new home, selling snacks and drinks. Her warm smile and kind nature quickly won over customers. James excelled at his job, and they began to save money for Emmanuel's future. Despite the challenges, they were thriving. One evening, as Brenda was cleaning up, a letter arrived from the convent. It was from Sister Agnes. Brenda's hand trembled as she read the words. "Dear Brenda, we've heard of your strength and resilience. Many of us regret how we treated you. Mother Superior has since retired, and the new leadership wishes to extend the olive branch. If you ever wish to visit, the doors are open for you. Tears steamed down Brenda's face. She didn't know if she was ready to return, but the gesture touched her deeply. With James's encouragement, Brenda decided to visit the convent. She was nervous as she walked through the familiar gates, memories flooding back. The nuns greeted her warmly, and Sister Agnes embraced her. "You've grown so much," she said, smiling. Brenda spent the day talking with the nuns, sharing her stories and hearing theirs. And when she left, she felt the weight lifted from her heart. Back in the city, Brenda's parents paid them an unexpected visit. They had heard of Brenda's success and wanted to see her new life. "We were wrong to push you away," her father said, his voice heavy with regret. Brenda embraced them, tears in her eyes. "I've forgiven you," she said. The reunion was emotion, and her parents stayed for a few days, bonding with Emmanuel and getting to know James. James surprised Brenda with a special celebration. He invited their friends and family to their home, decorating it with lights and flowers. "Why all this?" Brenda asked, laughing. "To celebrate you," James said, "for your strength, your love, and everything you've given me." Brenda's heart melted. As they danced under the stars, she realized she had found love deeper than she ever imagined. Years later, Brenda and James built a thriving life together. Emmanuel grew into a bright and kind boy, adored by everyone. Brenda often reflected on her journey from the convent to the hardship of being cast out to finding true love and building a family. Through it all, she had learned that life's challenge could lead to the most beautiful blessings. And as she watched James play with Emmanuel in their garden, she knew one thing for sure: love had saved her, and she was finally at peace. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for reaching this far. And kindly leave something in the comment section. Just let me know what you've learned in this story. This story has been amazing. Me as a person, I've learned. And just put something in the comment section what you've learned. And if you're new to this channel, oh my God, I welcome you and I don't take you for granted. Kindly subscribe. Hit the notification bell and that you will be notified whenever I post a video. Bye bye, see you in my next video. I love you all.